with 3-point perspective, the main thing that I do whenever I try to make it is I imagine that I'm looking at a floating building. Just it helps me to kind of like get my brain around it because it's an odd perspective, and it's one that you can use for very dramatic situations. Was it you that was saying that you were getting rubbed stuff from your? Yeah. It um sometimes the rulers come with a strip of cork on the back, and if you don't have that, you can get, you know, those little round felt things you put on the bottoms of your of things to keep from scratching your furniture. You could put a series of those on there, and that might help just lift it up a little bit so it's not rubbing on things. Okay. Yeah, if it's from your ruler, it's not from your hand. So you could put you could put paper under the ruler maybe that might help. There's also I don't have it here. It's at my other desk, but you can get a if you get a proper drafting table. I mean, if you have a drafting table, and you can get small portable ones, and they have a sliding ruler on it, and that can be really useful because it actually, you know, glides above your paper, and having that little bit of an edge, a little bit of a lift on your ruler can sometimes save your paper. Okay, so imagine, if you will, that and I actually saw there's a book. If you go through the online library, there's a book that you can look at that because we don't have our text, but I post it in the classroom. Um, that's called Complete Guide to Perspective, up to 6 points, 6-point perspective, which I thought was wow, that's really amazing. So I went to Amazon and looked it up and wanted to buy it, but it's like $50, and I was really bummed because that's a lot. Even used, I guess it's an actual textbook, and actual textbooks always seem to be super expensive. So you give yourself 3 points of perspective. And your horizon line is going to be, of course, through the bottom 2 perspectives. So now everything's going to be focused in lifting up. It's going to lift. I'm going to do the building lifting up, and I'll do something from above too, because there's another cool thing you can use it for, besides like Super Spider-Man. You know, if you're doing comic books and things where you can see tops of buildings and Spider-Man jumping around stuff, you could do that. But essentially, when you have a cube, I had one, but it's in my still life. 1-point perspective, the cube faces you. 2-point perspective, the edge faces you. And 3-point perspective, the point faces you. So you can start with putting the point of your building anywhere you like. The hardest part is just the parts you have to make up, you know, that things that you have to do. You have to make a decision about. It isn't, because everything else is so rigid, right? So as long as you have keep remembering that that's a corner of a building, and or a corner of this cube, this floating, whatever it's facing towards you. So all lines converge because there's only one kind of line, and they all converge, on their vanishing points. So we'll do 3 vanishing points. So I have to decide my building's going to be this deep, and decide where that's going to be, and it's going to be this high. Because sometimes people end up going all the way up to the top, and then the building has a point instead. We don't want that. So this will be, first I'm going to do the parallel sides. Top and the bottom are parallel, so they'll go this way. And then I have a sticky ruler. How fun. Tape that down, it'll be a little easier. So then this point, these 2 parallel lines converge up here. And then we have to make this side, so this be this deep on this side. And these 2 points will converge here, and then the top of the building, I missed my point, so I'll just move it up a little bit. Will converge like there. Now, then you do the same thing, and I always call it crisscross applesauce. That's how I remember it. Stupid, but sometimes I forget which, even I, the mad professor, can forget where the vanishing points go to. So there's your 3-point perspective. If you shade the bottom of it, and you even put like a shadow on the ground, sometimes that can make it seem like it's floating a little bit more. And you can even do, following the same rules. Well, we could actually, I'll do this. I'm going to find the center of this vertical surface. Let's find the center, take that to the vanishing point. Yep, it's the same thing. You're finding the center of a 4-point polygonal object, and there really is no other way to do it. You just go from corner to corner, and then take that corner up to vanishing point. Now you can use those, there's perspectives, I forget what that's called. They call it a name that I wasn't used to. I just know that it's horizontally, like fences going into the distance and railroad tracks going into the convergence. Yeah, horizontal and vertical convergence. So if I was going to put windows on here, it would be, and I wanted to do it very accurately, then by that I should mark it off. And I found the center of that square, but maybe I find the center of another square at the bottom, so I can get 3 rows or 4 rows of windows or whatever, and they all match up. So once you get into serious perspective, like everything else kind of goes out the window. You just have to. You could do, if you want to, I don't mind. You can put the guidelines in different colors if it helps keep things straight. You can also do it on a light table and then trace over it, but I like to see where your guidelines are going. So now I've got, here's the edge of the building, and here's where we could have 4 rows of windows. And you could take this all the way up too. Actually, we can use that. I never learned the one that they show going vertical in the book or in the guidelines. I've always used the one horizontal convergence for every direction. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do a horizontal convergence. Because I don't think it really matters. They both work. They both seem to work. As long as you can keep track of your lines, then you're doing just fine. All right. See, now I've lost track of my lines. I'm going to put one here. I know, it's crazy. I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one here. Okay, so I can kind of eyeball those guys there somewhat. But I want to put my next one up. I should put them in the corner, but I didn't. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3 off of here, off of this line. And there's this line, and it's got to go through the center line. Crap, I didn't do the center line. That's the problem. Another center line. Oh, that works. That's kind of interesting. We can do that. That helps actually make a lot of windows. There. I did just estimate it, but then when I put the middle of this, crap, I'm going to start over. I know. Because now I've lost track. See, ask me questions. Oh, it's 3-point perspective is the hardest one, and it's not. You're not going to use it all that often. So let's try a slightly different approach. We'll do the same sort of thing, but I'm going to do it from a different angle just because I need the practice anyway. So instead of doing a floating building, there's a really cool scene that I saw once. I think it was like in an old 70s album or something where they put like these pieces of floating island, right? So I'll have my horizon line up here instead, and we're looking down. So my vanishing point down here, and then my two external. Of course, you want them as wide as possible because you don't have to actually match up those vanishing points. That can just be because you're not going to have anything that's really on the horizon in this case, unless you put like a mountain range or something in the background. So what I want to do, and I'll sketch it out real lightly first, is I want to build like a piece of floating things. So I have this in my head. I think this would look cool. Sometimes you just got to make stuff up, you know. So here's my corner. And I'll start out with cubes because you can actually draw everything with a cube and then just work down from there. There's a really good book that I like to use to teach conceptual drawing called Rapid Visualization. And it explains a lot of this stuff in pretty straightforward terminology with lots and lots of illustrations. So that is really cool because you can start building all these things with just cubes. And once you get that down and you get used to drawing a cube in all directions, gets easier and easier to eyeball it. And you won't have to use quite as many guidelines. In the meantime, and I'm not suggesting that you necessarily do this for, I just like to have a practical use for whatever I'm drawing. I like to have a reason to draw something. I don't, unless I was doing Zentangle or something, it's like I don't really need to, I need to have something to draw from or make up or something. And I'd love to do things like, you could do like a Craig, uh, really following your perspective lines. Once you get your perspective lines laid down, you can do this like so. And then this perspective line follows for each one of these little things that you can start making it look like. You can do it for drapery too, but it makes it look like, since you got your guides in there, you can have it actually, I'm going to make that go in a little further because I like it when it curves out like that. So I've made myself a little reason to do an interesting shape and using the 3-point, how I would utilize the 3-point perspective in something other than buildings and blocks. That does get tiring after a while. And then figure your light source, go back to your observational drawing and think about your light source and how you might cast a shadow from one part to the next. And then you can really start getting some interesting, so it's starting to look kind of 3D and kind of cool. Yeah. Making up the shadows is a whole other crazy thing that you can do with perspective. And honestly, I'm not sure where that falls in, if that even comes into play. So we could put a little building on this, like a little house on the surface of this island. So I'm going to put a little cottage on there. And just keep using those same converging lines. And we're going to go, it's not crossing the horizon line, so we can keep going up like this. I'm not going to make a very tall house. Oh, I should probably make one of those darn peaked roofs, though, huh? Those are awful. These peaked roofs make me crazy. But I do love perspective because it's so scientific in a way. It appeals to my Aquarian nature, you know? Hi, how you doing? Oh, hanging in there. Just making a floating island. Put a path on it. Oh, okay. I'm going to put a spaceport out here. Hey, why not? Right? Have some reason to do this. Flying buttresses. Yeah, that's it. Flying buttresses. Okay. It's fine. Cameras aren't super necessary. It's just kind of a convenience. I think I'll put a spaceship hangar here. I'm just going to try using the guidelines I've already got created to put these in there. So I'm going to put a little spaceship on here. Oh, can you mute? There's a lot of background noise there, Randy. Thanks. So now I've got shadows. So that's kind of fun. All right, I'll do a peaked roof. Oh. So, so we'll do the peaked roof by finding the center of this guy here. A pitched roof, I think they call it. And since it's all converging, no horizontal, no vertical, then this line has to converge too. And I'll make this guy like this. So it's going to be a Swiss chalet on a floating island in space. All right, to do that other one back there, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to calculate it because I'm not really sure where it's going to end up since everything is so, it's really got to take the guesswork out of it if you really want it to be accurate. It's like if I was doing an illustration for a magazine or maybe even I just totally forgot what I was going to say. An illustration for a magazine or something else. Oh, a large scale. Oh, I know, a mural on a wall, because that's where I really dig using perspective. The power of perspective is doing wall murals and street art because it creates such an incredible illusion. So if I was going to do that, I would definitely plot it all out and then clean up the drawing and transfer the drawing to the surface I was going to execute it on. So now that I've done that, yeah, define where it goes to. Yeah, that's what I just had to do here. I had to do the back face so I knew where this point ended up. There was no way for me to, well, I guess if I did this enough, if you do it enough, it becomes more second nature. It's just like target practice. like anything, you do it enough, like when you do sighting on a still life, if you do it enough, you'll find that. And I always check myself, and I'm usually right. Like 90% of the time, I find that I'll be right on when I do when I check my sighting. But that takes a long time to get there. It's just like anything that you have to practice for any length of time. So now I've got a little scene, little house here. Maybe I'll put a porthole on this side, an arched window. So most of the people that are taking this class, I think, are like going into interior design anyway, right? Or a lot of them are. So this kind of works for all that. You can start designing your own whatevers. And then, oh, see, I could do this. I could hang off a little bit of grassy bits off the side. Even when I used to do 8-bit Nintendo games and handheld GBA games, that was always a thing when you do side scrollers. You had cliffs, that you run along, and so you'd always have to make these little flops over of ice or grass or mud or whatever to give it dimension. So that was something that I really like to do. And you can put just a few little bits of texture here and there. You don't have to fill the whole thing. Some people think that they got to put draw in every single rock and crevice, but that's not the case. It's not bad. I kind of like it. I could do a little painting of this. I might put a different house on it, but I, it is a little cool. What's that? That's all right. I'm recording this, so this one's going to be recorded, yeah. No worries. No worries. It's just a magic trick. Come on. It's just a fake out. It's all an illusion. It's not real. I love doing trompe l'oeil things, make things look like they're not. Okay. All right. Sounds great. It's real stuff, huh? You actually drew real stuff. All right. I'll expect to see you eating it too. All right. Sounds good. No, it's all right. All right. Bye. Yeah, he was quite naughty. He did his first drawings. I caught him. I found saw the photograph when he was showing me his screen so I could help him with Photoshop. I'm like, what the hell? And he had used a picture of an apple. Why didn't you just use a real apple, dude? How hard? Oh my God! So I'll never live it down. So there's a little interesting sort of 3-point perspective nonsense, and we could do the same thing out here. I don't know how far you want me to take it, but when I was a kid in high school, I used to make chessboards just for fun, just because I was weird. And I would make these chessboards and I'd plot them all out with this 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective stuff, and all the pieces on there. And I look back on it now. I don't know if somebody taught me how to do it or if I saw it in a book or how I managed to get started on the 3-point perspective thing. It was really strange. But I did a lot of strange artistic things when I was a kid. Because there's two reasons why people become artists. One is that they figure it out by accident how to make stuff look real. Because that's always the frustrating part is how do you make it look real? If you can't make it look real, most people give up. So if you ask somebody to draw something as an adult and they are one of those people that gave up, they'll they'll say, "Oh, I can't," and it'll be well, they'll draw it like something like they did when they were 10, because that's usually when people give up drawing. So I'm going to start confusing myself again if I do this, talk too much. But the other thing is, if you figure it out, if you figure it out, or somebody teaches it to you how to do the optical illusion of perspective or make things look real, everything changes. It's like a game changer. Now, the closer you get to your vanishing points, the harder it is to get an object that isn't hideously distorted. This is going to be, this one down here is going to be really hideously distorted. So if I really wanted to make this right, then you get a big paper and put your vanishing points way outside your picture frame. Yeah, because we could definitely I could end the picture frame here on this, and that would make these look better. And it would be better if this vanishing point was a bit further down. Just a second. What is that line for? Oh my God, you see? I did it again. Oops. I did it again. I'll just figure that's it, that it's the back piece. And this is the front piece. Oh, I just got another clever idea. Oh my goodness. This is so fun. I'm so glad that you came and inspired me to do this, because now I'm going to do a bridge. And you really should plot the bridge right. So one side of the bridge and the other side of the bridge, like that. It should go like it will cross over there. You might see the top of it. And then you'll see the underside of it, depending on where it is. From above, you'd see even more. Just see the top of this, and then it disappears as it goes over the edge and then down. And you'll see it like that. That's a really bad sketch, but I think you know what I mean. You could do a hanging bridge too. That would be fun. You don't actually have to plot it because it could go different directions. You just need to make sure that you make it diminutive. I can't even pronounce the darn word. Diminution. It's Friday. Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't know what my brain. What is the matter with my poor little brain today? It's just fried out of existence. So I would definitely want to move this down to here, and then so that I could bring these down at a more natural angle to put these other pieces in the back, and then do a little. And maybe it even has a little mountain range on the background. That could be fun. I'm thinking about this really silly iPhone game I was playing called Monsters. And they all were you'd get these monsters and they would hatch and they would sing different tunes, and then they all lived on this little floating island thing. But the reason that works so well is it's so easy to make that optical illusion of something floating using this perspective, Very silly. Very silly. Well, technically, yeah, technically it should curve. Space really curves. So we could put something above the horizon line and a fourth point. I'll put a fourth point way up here. So yeah. Yeah, but everything breaks down across the horizon because technically it would curve. Otherwise, you have an angle. But you could, if as long as you didn't actually cross the horizon, you see if you can see both, if you can see all 4 points, and as you look down, even horizons even bend. You know, I mean, it fish eyes. You get this fisheye look, which they actually discovered in the Renaissance. This effect. So that book on 6-point perspective talks about that and the different curves and having perspective on in 360 degrees, which is kind of astonishing if you think about it. But yeah, of course, space isn't linear. We just perceive it as linear. All right. Right, right. So I'm going to make a very thin little floating platform up here. That's there goes the, keeping track of my points and what points go to what vanishing point. And it's so easy to get completely turned around with this stuff. So I can have a floating platform. And maybe I'll round it. Oh, I can show you something really cool. You want to know how to make an ellipse? I don't know if it's in the text yet because I have to do next week's assignments. I haven't done them yet. I'm just going to roll this up for a minute and then bring it back down. But if you have so you have, I think I showed this before, all these tricks that I know with perspective. I might be showing them out of order from the class, but that's okay. So you have a square. And if it's actually a square, in the middle of the square, you could say it was there. So if you match up your corners, find the center of the square, that works. But what if you have a square in perspective? Like so. So I'll clean that up a little bit. If it's 2-point, say it's a 2-point perspective square. I'm just eyeballing my vanishing points at the moment. Okay. So the middle of the square, if I were to measure it, say it's 1 inch tall, so it would be halfway, and it's whatever inches wide, 5 inches wide, so it'd be 2.5 to find the middle of what the perceptual middle of the square feels like that, right? In the space, if that was like a diamond shape and not a square. But since I know it's a square, finding the center puts it over here. So yeah, so if you have one that's like this, it's not here, but up here somewhere because of the angle of the perspective pushes it off like that. So, and this is in that book that you can get on the online library. I would definitely go take a look at it. You can download a number of pages, or you can try to borrow it. They only had 3 copies, and I've got one of them, and you want to get it for 7 days. So, say I wanted to do a circle. If I'm going to do a circle inside of a square, as we know, circles are a smaller area than a square if they fit inside because they cut off the edges, right? So you go like this. Now, I just looked at this diagram. I knew from before, but how to make an even better one, and then even how to make a spiral staircase. Oh, in perspective. Oh, that was so cool. So essentially, you divide this into 3 parts. If you're going to do it with a just an 8-point circle, the more points you put, the more accurate your circle is. And there's a way to plot it. I think I'd have to go look up the diagram to do it. So if you can do that on here as well, we'll find the middle. Now it's important, if these lines are parallel, then that's easy enough to get across. But I've seen people try to do like the middle line, and they'll go like this instead of going like this. It's got to go with, yeah, so it's got to go with the same, wherever these vanishing points are ending up on my perspective square. This has got to go to the same vanishing point. So it might be at an angle and not straight. This one happens to be straight, but if it was more tilted. And then you take each one of these little diagonal lines, which aren't lined up very well right now, and divide them into thirds. The tricky part is not looking at anything else and just looking at that one line, because from here to here, the thirds are going to be, from here to here, they're going to be smaller. And this is like the quick down and dirty way. There's probably a better way to plot it. There is a better way to plot it, but I haven't learned it yet. So then it's like playing point to point. So here to 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 here. And that makes your ellipse or your circle in perspective. Now, the more accurately you can plot your points, of course, the better an ellipse you're going to get. But there's definitely no point. A lot of people draw their ellipses like this, right? Instead of like this. But no matter how small that ellipse gets, there's never a point. Never really a point. It's like infinitesimal. It's just like the lines that converge never really converge. They never really touch. Just appear to touch. They get so small as to disappear. So if you can plot your, so I'll make this a disk. And I don't know if it's a circle or an oval, but it doesn't really matter because the rules are still the same. Find your centers. And then you can find the third down on each one of these lines and use that to plot your disk. It's hard. My hand wants to draw something different than I know I'm supposed to. It's really funny. And then cut this off here. Oops. Keep that going the same. Maybe I want to put a third line and make it like a flying disc. So this would actually, then I'm adding another curve to it. So I don't suggest doing that. It's just what I'm doing. Make a kind of curve, a third curve. So here's our other spaceship, and maybe it's even got yet another ring around it. I mean, you could go crazy with it, with the perspective. And it gets, and here's feet coming down, and this one would actually be coming down right towards you. So this would, if you were doing it really in foreshortened perspective, if this piece was coming towards you, so like from above, if this object had cross beams with balls on it, and I just did this one side to side, and this one comes to, this is going to be like up here, and this one's going to be like back there. And you'll start to really get like crazy with it, and it's kind of cool. So put a pond on this one. I have to look and see what the final, I think the final assignment in the perspective class is to create an imaginary something in 3 dimensions, probably in 2 or 3D, 2 or 3 perspective. I think it's putting a room with a man in it or something like that, or a person in it. But you could definitely take it out into wherever you want to take it, as creative as you feel comfortable doing. That could be really fun. Oh, I'll make this a volcano. We're crossing over the line now. So if this is going to cross, it's an organic object, so it'll probably get really wide and then it'll start getting smaller again. I don't know how to make that happen, but the volcano could go like that. Okay, so there you go. 3-point perspective. Now, my still life, if you're interested, what I'm still going to do and just record is turn on my camera. That's my still life. Eggs. A broken egg. I have to just kind of switch it up a bit, you know? So, you want to see me draw a broken egg? You have to get going? No worries. I'll record this and no worries. I'm going to stop this one.